Zo 5:40 a.m., August 9th, 2025. The southern waters off Odessa shimmered under the faint light of dawn. To the naked eye, it was calm. But beneath the waves, 12 Russian submarines were creeping toward shore, carrying a force Moscow believed would rewrite the war. Each vessel, over 400 feet long, displacing more than 7,000 tons, was not loaded with its full missile arsenal. Instead, it carried 50 elite Spetsnaz naval infantrymen, 600 men in total. Their orders were clear: land undetected just 3 kilometers from a Ukrainian base, overrun it in under 15 minutes, and seize it without firing a single missile. The Kremlin called it flawless. The submarines cruised silently in the thermocline layer, periscopes never breaking the surface. Inflatable boats were ready, night vision goggles strapped tight, suppressed rifles loaded. Every detail pointed to swift victory. But what the Russians could not see was the invisible wall awaiting them. A billion-dollar trap, forged from American technology, Ukrainian resilience, and a battlefield that no longer forgave stealth alone. Was Russia's daring gamble the beginning of a lightning conquest, or the prelude to its most humiliating defeat? Stay with us and witness how hunters became prey within minutes. The Black Sea was still. No waves, no sound, only the deep hum of steel sliding beneath the surface. 12 Russian submarines advanced in complete radio silence, their hulls cutting through the thermocline layer like shadows. Each vessel carried a deadly cargo: 50 Spetsnaz naval infantrymen, trained for infiltration, sabotage, and lightning capture. This was no ordinary mission. In Moscow's war rooms, planners believed this operation would be decisive. Why bombard a base with missiles, risking escalation, when elite men could slip ashore, seize control, and leave the world stunned? Stealth, not firepower, was the Kremlin's chosen weapon. Inside the submarines, the Spetsnaz sat in dim red light. Their gear weighed 80 pounds each: AK-12 rifles with suppressors, GP-25 grenade launchers, combat knives, thermal goggles, and encrypted radios. They had drilled for months in mock-ups of Ukrainian bases. They knew every maneuver, every movement, down to the second. Collectively, their training budget exceeded $20 million, and their commanders claimed they could wipe out an area the size of a football field in under 90 seconds. On paper, the plan was flawless. The submarines carried no full missile load. Instead, 60 Kalibr cruise missiles had been offloaded to make room for soldiers. Those weapons, each with a range of 1,500 miles, would remain idle. Moscow's confidence was staggering. The men, not the missiles, would deliver victory. Their landing zone had been chosen with surgical precision. A 3-kilometer stretch of coastline that appeared barren, unfortified, with natural blind spots in the dunes. To Russian intelligence, it was the perfect insertion point. At a slow crawl of 6 knots, the submarines crept closer. The first wave of soldiers would deploy in inflatable zodiacs, slipping quietly onto the sand. 5-man squads would spread out in staggered formations, advancing through gullies and farmland toward the Ukrainian base. By the time the sun fully rose, planners expected the flag of the Russian Navy to fly over enemy defenses. At 05:40 a.m., dawn broke over Odessa. The surface of the sea shimmered faintly, hiding the billion-dollar storm below. Each submarine was worth nearly $400 million. Together, the strike group represented a $4.8 billion gamble. Steel, electronics, and blood converging on one point. To their commanders, the Spetsnaz were ghosts, silent, unstoppable, unseen. In the Kremlin's eyes, this was not just an attack. It was a statement that Russia's reach extended into Ukrainian strongholds, that no fortress was safe. The Russian soldiers emerged from their compartments, their boots clanging softly on the steel decks. Inflatable boats were inflated, oars prepared. They whispered final checks, tightening straps, adjusting silencers. In the minds of these men, their mission was inevitable victory. Yet outside their submarines, the ocean was not empty. High above, unseen by Russian eyes, small reconnaissance drones orbited in silence. On the shore, an invisible network of sensors waited for vibrations, for the slightest motion in the soil. The Russians did not know it, but they were already inside a net. They could not escape. Still, they advanced, confident, certain of glory. At 05:42 a.m., the first submarine surfaced, its conning tower breaking the waterline for just seconds. Inflatable boats slid quietly into the sea. The soldiers paddled swiftly, boots splashing into damp sand less than 2 minutes later. 92 seconds. That was all it took for the first wave of Spetsnaz to set foot on Ukrainian soil. To them, it felt like triumph. To Ukraine, it was the first step into a kill zone. The hunters had arrived, unaware. They were already the hunted. To the Russian soldiers, the beach looked empty. No fences, no guard towers, no visible fortifications, just sand, scrub, and the faint silhouette of a base 3 kilometers inland. It was exactly what Moscow's planners had promised. Unguarded terrain, the perfect entry point. But appearances were lies. What the Spetsnaz could not see was an $85 million defensive shield encircling the Ukrainian installation. A 1 kilometer wide perimeter of sensors buried beneath soil and rock, invisible to the human eye, but alive with data. 240 seismic and motion detectors, each calibrated to detect footsteps as slow as 0.2 meters per second, fed information into a central radar hub. From there, 6 operators monitored screens that refreshed every 3 seconds, watching for intrusions. The system never slept, never blinked, never missed. At the outer edge of the base, 14 elevated posts formed an overlapping web of observation. Day or night, each tower housed 4 soldiers, armed with M4 carbines, PKM machine guns, and thermal imagers capable of detecting human silhouettes 200 meters away. What looked like an undefended coastline was in fact the deadliest trap on the Black Sea. High above, Ukraine's eyes watched constantly. 5 PD-2 reconnaissance drones circled at 1,500 feet, their cameras scanning heat signatures, their AI-assisted targeting algorithms tracking every squad, every movement. Smaller backpack-sized UAVs launched from trenches closer to the base, feeding live video in bursts of 5-second intervals. At 05:44 a.m., the first Russian squad crossed into the invisible barrier. A faint blip appeared on a radar screen inside the Ukrainian command center. Then another. Within seconds, the system confirmed multiple intrusions, heavily armed, moving in staggered formation. The senior duty officer lifted a phone. "Intrusion confirmed. Hold positions. Prepare the trap." His voice was calm, unshaken. Outside, soldiers melted into concealed nests, trenches camouflaged with foliage, bunkers reinforced with sandbags, firing lines hidden within the terrain. They moved silently, precise, vanishing into the earth itself. To the Russians, the land was silent. To Ukraine, It was alive. Every inch mapped, every movement recorded. Yet even the most sophisticated defense can falter. At 05:46 a.m., one of the PD-2 drones suddenly lost power, spiraling into a nearby field. Its wreckage smoked faintly, a potential beacon of warning. Commanders feared, if Russian scouts stumbled upon it, they might realize they were being watched. At the same moment, disaster struck on the ground. A BTR-4E armored personnel carrier, one of 10 sent to flank and cut off Russian retreat routes, jolted violently as it hit a hidden ditch. Hydraulic fluid sprayed into the dirt. The 17-ton vehicle ground to a halt, blocking part of the maneuver. The Ukrainian commander clenched his jaw. 2 failures in seconds, one in the air, one on the ground. Holes were opening in the trap. If the Russians broke toward that gap, the encirclement could collapse before it began. There was no time to hesitate. He ordered 2 other BTR-4Es to reroute through a narrow farm track, engines roaring as they raced to seal the gap. Meanwhile, artillery crews adjusted firing tables, covering the exposed sector with overlapping fire. The gamble was dangerous, but the commander trusted his men and the technology in their hands. On their screens, radar operators watched as the Russian squads continued to advance, unaware of the invisible eyes above them, unaware that their every step was being logged. The blips moved deeper, into the kill zone. In the command center, silence reigned. Every man knew what was about to unfold. The hunters still believed they were ghosts, but they were already inside a cage, and the walls were closing in. 05:48 a.m. The Ukrainian commander lifted his headset. His voice was low, steady. Phase 1, fire. In an instant, the stillness shattered. 6 six-barreled GSAG 7.62 Gatling guns roared to life, each spewing 6,000 rounds per minute. The morning air ripped open with thunder. In the first 10 seconds alone, more than 6,000 bullets tore through the center of the Russian formation. The Spetsnaz, elite warriors trained for silence and precision, suddenly found themselves ripped apart in the open. Their staggered formations dissolved in chaos. Some dropped instantly, cut down before they even understood the danger. Others scrambled for shallow depressions, diving behind bushes and ditches. It was useless. The storm of fire chewed through everything. From both flanks, ambush teams opened fire. PKM machine guns hammered from concealed trenches. Snipers, hidden 600 meters away with thermal scopes, picked off squad leaders one by one. Each muzzle flash the Russians dared to show was instantly tagged by drones circling above, relayed in real time to mortar crews, who adjusted their aim within seconds. In the first 2 minutes, more than 120 Spetsnaz lay dead. Nearly 1/5 of Russia's elite force wiped out before they could fire a single organized volley. Panic spread. The Spetsnaz tried to regroup, forming defensive circles, returning bursts of fire. But the battlefield had already shifted. Ukraine had turned their stealth into visibility, their coordination into fragmentation. Meanwhile, the armored wall was closing in. 8 BTR-4E armored personnel carriers thundered across fields, their engines shaking the ground. Each carried an 8-man assault team, armed with RPG-7s and RPK light machine guns. Their mission: seal off the Russians' escape route to the sea. Above, the PD-2 drones hung in the sky like silent vultures. Their infrared optics tracked every fleeing silhouette. Their AI systems highlighted patterns of movement, predicting where the Russians would run before they even broke cover. The Ukrainian commander gave calm, clipped orders. Left flank, cut them down. Mortars, shift 5 degrees. BTR units, hold the line. Do not let them through. The Russians fought desperately. Grenades exploded against tree lines. Short bursts of suppressed rifles cracked in the haze. But it was like throwing pebbles into a storm. Every Russian squad that tried to advance was met by overlapping fire. Every retreating group funneled deeper into the V-shaped ambush. At 05:51 a.m., the kill zone reached its full fury. The valley that Russia thought was its path to victory became a slaughterhouse. Bodies scattered across fields, weapons abandoned in shallow craters. The silence of their approach had turned into screams, gunfire, and the whine of drones overhead. And yet, the Russians refused to break entirely. Their radios crackled with coded calls. Distress signals shot through encrypted VHF frequencies, pleading for extraction offshore. The 12 submarines still lurked in the depths. The order came swiftly from commanders below the waves. Prepare rescue. Suppress the enemy. Launch missiles. For the Spetsnaz on the ground, hope flickered. The sea, their hidden ally, was about to strike. In their minds, salvation was seconds away. But they did not know that Ukraine was ready not just for soldiers on the field, but for the steel beneath the waves as well. The hunters had stumbled deeper into the cage, and now the ocean itself was about to join the battle. 05:53 a.m. The battlefield was chaos. Spetsnaz units pinned in crossfire. Ukrainian ambush lines tightening every minute. Desperate voices crackled through encrypted radios. Request fire support. Immediate extraction. Coordinates locked. 3 kilometers offshore, 12 Russian submarines received the signal. In their dim control rooms, alarms blared. Orders barked in clipped Russian. Adjust depth. Target the Ukrainian base. Launch all remaining cruise missiles. The sea erupted. From beneath the waves, 56 Kalibr cruise missiles surged upward. Each a steel spear weighing 2,300 pounds, carrying an 1,100-pound warhead. Engines roared as they broke the surface, streaking toward the Ukrainian coast at nearly the speed of sound. It was saturation. It was overwhelm. It was supposed to tear a hole in Ukraine's defenses, long enough for Spetsnaz to escape. Onshore, trapped soldiers looked up. Contrails arched across the dawn sky. To them, it was salvation, proof that the motherland would not abandon its sons. But salvation never came. Guarding the base was the NASAMS 3 air defense system, installed only 2 months earlier, worth $65 million. Linked to Sentinel radars, tracking 72 targets at once. Its launchers waited, silent, patient. In the command center, the Ukrainian commander's voice was calm, cold. Next wave, engage. 4 launchers swiveled skyward. 16 AMRAAM interceptors ignited, streaking at 4 times the speed of sound. Each struck with surgical precision. The first Kalibrs disintegrated, shredded midair into fragments. But more came, dozens more. 50 missiles streaking closer. Operators didn't flinch. Another volley roared skyward. The sky turned into a battlefield, contrails twisting, explosions flashing. Every detonation was a duel, steel against steel, billions of dollars clashing in seconds. At 05:56 a.m., the last fragments rained harmlessly into fields and waves. 56 launches, 56 kills. A perfect interception. Not a single missile touched Ukrainian soil. In the command center, silence. No cheers, no outbursts. Just the commander's steady order. Airspace clear. Resume ground operations. For the Spetsnaz below, hope shattered. They had expected explosions. They had expected salvation. Instead, nothing. Their last chance was gone. And then, the sea answered again. But not to save them. From coastal batteries, Ukraine unleashed 10 RPK-300 Polos anti-submarine missiles. Each carried a guided torpedo with 95% accuracy. Plumes streaked into the dawn sky. Moments later, the Black Sea shook. 5 submarines, worth $2 billion, were torn apart beneath the waves. Shockwaves cracked hulls. Compartments flooded. Crews silenced before distress calls could even be sent. The survivors, 7 submarines, had no choice but to flee, diving deep, abandoning their soldiers ashore. At 0600 a.m., the battlefield shifted again. Russia's submarines, once its hidden dagger, became coffins. Its missiles, once its pride, became smoke. Its Spetsnaz, once its elite, were trapped, alone. The gamble was failing, fast. What Moscow had envisioned as a silent victory was becoming its most humiliating defeat. 06:02 a.m. The thunder of underwater detonations faded. 5 submarines were gone. The others fled. For the Spetsnaz inland, there would be no rescue. BTR-4Es rumbled forward, 30mm autocannons sweeping tree lines. Mortar shells, guided by GPS fuses, fell with surgical precision. Drones swooped lower, cameras capturing every muzzle flash, every broken formation. By 06:05 a.m., the Spetsnaz were shattered. 180 dead, 250 wounded. Less than 170 still able to fight. Radios crackled with despair. No extraction, low ammo, request last stand. But Ukraine had no interest in a last stand. The commander initiated Operation Silent Net. Psychological pressure, combined with overwhelming firepower. 4 mobile loudspeakers rolled to the perimeter. Voices boomed in Russian. "You are surrounded. No escape. Surrender now, and live." Above, drones dropped thermobaric charges. Small blasts shook the ground, not to kill, but to remind the Russians, you are seen, you are hunted, you are finished. Morale broke. Thermal footage showed helmets tossed aside, rifles abandoned. Some raised improvised white flags. Others emerged with hands high, faces pale in the dawn light. At 06:11 a.m., 23 Spetsnaz surrendered. Minutes later, dozens more. Commanders tried to rally, but their words fell into silence. By 06:18 a.m., it was over. All 600 Spetsnaz, the pride of Russia's naval infantry, had been captured. Every man scanned, photographed, tagged in NATO biometric systems. The battlefield was secure. Ukrainian casualties? 4 wounded. 4. Against 600 elite invaders. The humiliation was total. 12 submarines had set out. 5 lay on the seabed. 600 soldiers had landed. 600 surrendered. 56 cruise missiles had been launched. 56 were destroyed. What Moscow envisioned as a masterpiece became a textbook disaster. For Ukraine, it was triumph. For Russia, catastrophe. For the world, a lesson. In modern war, sensors, coordination, and technology are deadlier than any missile barrage. As the sun rose over Odessa, silence returned. But it was not the silence of victory for Russia. It was the silence left behind when an invasion is erased. 06:18 a.m., August 9th, 2025. It was finished. What began as Moscow's bold gamble, 12 submarines, 600 Spetsnaz, billions in steel and training, ended in total humiliation. In less than 40 minutes, Russia had lost 5 submarines to the depths, every single soldier captured, and its cruise missiles annihilated mid-air. The Kremlin had promised a flawless strike. Instead, it delivered one of the most complete defeats in modern military history. Ukraine stood unbroken. Its defenses had worked with surgical precision. The $85 million sensor belt had detected intruders the moment they set foot ashore. The NASAMS 3 air defense system achieved the impossible. 56 kills for 56 launches. Coastal batteries erased submarines that had once stalked the seas, and drones, tireless, ever-present, turned every Russian step into a target. This was not chance, not luck. It was proof that in the 21st century, the true power of war is not brute force, but information. Not numbers, but coordination. Not noise, but silence. Silence that hides sensors, networks, and eyes in the sky. For Ukrainian soldiers, it was a moment of triumph. They faced one of Russia's most elite strike forces and emerged nearly unscathed. For the United States and NATO allies, it was validation that their weapons and training were not just effective, but decisive. And for Russia, it was a bitter reminder. Even the most elite forces can be rendered powerless when every move is anticipated, every signal tracked, every escape cut off. The world watched in awe. Footage spread across news outlets and social media. The image of 600 Spetsnaz, hands on their heads, weapons piled at their feet, told a story no propaganda could erase. A superpower's arrogance, shattered in a single dawn. History will remember August 9th, 2025, as the day Odessa held the line, the day a silent invasion was swallowed by an invisible wall, the day modern defense crushed old doctrines of stealth and surprise. Beyond the wreckage of submarines, beyond the smoldering craters of failed assaults, one truth remained. Freedom endures when nations stand vigilant, prepared, and united. So I ask you, will Russia dare attempt such an infiltration again? Or has this disaster marked the end of its naval ambitions in the Black Sea? Tell me in the comments. If you believe in Ukraine's fight, if you believe in the strength of resilience, and if you believe that freedom must always stand against aggression, then join us. Like this video, share it so the truth spreads, and subscribe for more frontline military stories where nations are tested and soldiers carve history in blood and steel. Because in the end, silence will return to the sea. But it will not be the silence of surrender. It will be the silence left behind when freedom triumphs over tyranny.